the president, particularly his work in the Middle East and so forth, and the question of whether the calls by Rashida Tlaib and other members of the squad or people on the left are going to have any influence in getting people to vote uncommitted rather than Joe Biden on the primary in Michigan. What do you think is going to happen there?
Yeah, we'll have to watch it very closely. And I think this is going to be a protest vote like you talked about. And they're going to try to get as many people as they can to make this statement. But the big difference here between the Democrat and the Republican primaries that are happening, these voters that are uncommitted possibly tomorrow are most likely going to come back and vote for Joe Biden in the general election. Whereas the numbers we're seeing out of the South Carolina primary, Iowa, New Hampshire, it shows that Trump has reached a ceiling, that the 40% or so that didn't vote for him in those primaries, many of them are not going to vote for him in the general election. So that's a big problem. Whereas on the Democratic side, they're trying to position, try to throw their weight around and try to move the president on a particular issue. And like the governor of Michigan said, a vote against or not for Biden is a vote potentially for Donald Trump. I think people recognize, they realize that, and they're going to come home to Joe Biden when it really matters in the general election.
But then, Chris, you have the problem of what happens to Biden on the stump, and he hasn't performed well in these unscripted moments. He's going to be on TV tonight, by the way. Who's it with? Seth, I think. Seth Meyers, or one of the talk shows, and that's very tightly scripted. They probably give him laugh lines, et cetera. But, particularly independents, the question is whether they are going to be more bothered by the presidency of Biden and his competence, or more bothered by Donald Trump and some of the outrageous things that he says. Where do you think the independents are going to come down on that?
Well, I think the biggest difference between what's going on in the Republican primary and what's going on with Joe Biden is in the Republican primary, you're not going to have someone continue all the way through November. And on the Democrat side, you've got Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who will be on the ballot in, looks like, most states in November. And so you do have an outlet for Democrats who don't want to vote for Joe Biden to vote for a very well-known Democrat name who's already taken a pretty large percentage of the Democrat vote. And I think that's a real challenge for Biden. And as you said, he does transcript everything tightly, even his press conferences, apparently. It's pretty amazing. He's got a deal with reporters that they give their questions in advance. He's got scripted answers to them, something we've never seen before in American politics or American journalism for that matter. But it is, I think he's got real challenges to show that he is up to the job and that he is mentally competent to serve as president for another 4 years. And if he doesn't, I think you're going to see him start to hemorrhage his base.
Well, David, final question for you. Immigration, which has quickly become the number one issue for most voters, as people all over America are dealing with migrant issues in their own communities right now. It's become a very personal issue. And of course, they didn't work out a deal. First, House Republicans came up with an immigration plan. That was not put up for a floor vote in the Senate. Then, of course, the Senate, Mitch McConnell and Schumer got together, but the House rejected it. What is the president going to do now? He has to address it. He's going to be going to the border on Thursday, the same day Trump is going to be there, by the way. What kind of executive action do you think he'll take to kind of put out the fire at the border?
Well, we've been down this road before. He's tried to do executive orders that he's been stymied by the court.
Well, he did executive orders to open the border. I mean, he got rid of Remain in Mexico and other things that seemed to be working, that seems to be a calming thing, and then he loosened the strings on the whole amnesty issue.
Well, Title 42 was a requirement by the court, something that Biden was trying to keep in place, but that's a COVID-era restriction. But look, Republicans have fumbled the ball here. We've been talking about the border, talking about the migrant crisis. Then you have an opportunity to get comprehensive legislation passed, and Republicans say, no, we're not going to do it.
We only have a couple of seconds. But what specifically do you think the president is going to do with executive actions to close up that border?
Well, there's a few things that he can do. I'm not exactly sure which way he's going to go or what executive order, but I think he's going to make clear that whatever the president does, doesn't matter if it's Joe Biden or the former president, Donald Trump, we need Congress to be involved in this solution. It can't be just blaming one party or the other. And that's what Republicans have shown their true colors. They're saying, look, we're going to complain about it when we have an opportunity to do something. We'd rather not. We'd rather still just take this political football and throw it to Joe Biden.